Thanks for joining us here on Fox 10. Rough weather day today. A lot of severe thunderstorm warnings out there and some watches up too. But as we go through the night, it will settle down. We're in that level 2 slight risk for severe weather. And tomorrow, no change. Still have a severe weather threat across the Gulf Coast with this stalled boundary in place and the upper energy riding along that boundary. So what does the Futurecast say with this? Well, it's trying to take a lot of the thunderstorms offshore after 7 p.m. tonight, which would lower the threat overnight. And that could be a good thing. Still could see a couple of strong cells, but for the most part tonight it will be in a little bit of a quiet phase, and then things will re-energize tomorrow. And the Futurecast is hinting at a strong thunderstorm complex moving through tomorrow morning. That will transition rapidly through the area. We'll get a break. The sun will come out, heat things up, and then we do expect scattered showers and storms to redevelop into the afternoon and evening tomorrow afternoon. In the tropics, we're looking at something really unusual for June. It's been really unusual for June here locally too, with the severe weather that we've been seeing, but also looking out into the Atlantic, there's a 20% chance of this tropical wave, which is coming off of Africa, developing, and that is really would be super unusual. But water temperatures are way above average in the Atlantic, so it is possible something could get going. Remember, this is about 3,500 to 4,000 miles away from us, so a lot can happen between now and then with the possibility of tropical weather, and so we'll just keep watching it. We got plenty of time to track it. All right, looking at our rain percentages here, 60% on Friday, 50% on Saturday. Sunday, Father's Day, 40%, a little bit hotter into Sunday as well. Federal holiday on Monday, Juneteenth, 90 degrees with scattered showers and storms. So we've been really covering these severe storms here lately, and we've been in that coverage for storms in parts of the area. And later tonight here and coming up right after this, Nicholas Herboso will be talking about the different types of warnings that are issued. And some areas have been getting rain, other areas haven't. Meteorologist Michael White will talk about the areas that are not seeing that stormy weather coming up.
Can I play? Sure, but you need to bring your own truck. That's not a problem.
The Fox 10 Storm Tracker Fleet, taking you live to more places, covering the Gulf Coast like no one else can. Unrivaled experience, unparalleled severe weather coverage.
I think I need a bigger sandbox.
We've seen plenty of severe thunderstorm watches and warnings over the past few days. Nicholas Herboso is here to explain the different types of warnings and what they mean. Nicholas?
Well, thank you, Jason. So we have had some different watches and warnings out there this week, really. Plenty of action out there, especially in the northern half of our area. So I wanted to break down a few of the different types of the watches and warnings that we have. So the basic severe thunderstorm warning is a very simple definition-based warning watches. The basic severe thunderstorm watch is simply where we have the ingredients around the area for severe thunderstorms. So if the ingredients are in place for severe thunderstorms, then we can get a severe thunderstorm watch. Now, what about a fancier version, a more intense version of a severe thunderstorm watch? That is the PDS severe thunderstorm watch, where conditions are favorable for more intense severe weather. We're talking maybe even baseball size hail, tennis ball size hail, larger hail, and also winds up to 80 miles per hour. What does PDS stand for? It stands for particularly dangerous situation. Now, let's switch to warnings now. What about warnings? It is a very much criteria-based warning system, where if the storm has winds of 58 miles per hour or greater, or if it has hail 1 inch in diameter or greater, it gets a warning. If the National Weather Service sees it on radar, thinks that it might have that, it gets a basic severe thunderstorm warning. Then we have an upgrade possible, a tag. Considerable. We've had a few of those this week where winds are over 70 miles per hour, or winds or hail 1 3/4 inches or greater. And then there's another one, destructive. 80 mile per hour winds possible, and hail possibly up to 2.75 inches. That's around baseball size. And one addendum to this, there is also another version called Tornado Possible, where if there is possible a tornado, brief spin up tornado within that warning, they can put that tag in there as well, and that will be covered and give you warning. So always make sure you have that Fox 10 weather app with you to get these warnings, and we will always keep you updated here at Fox 10. In the studio, Nicholas Raboso, Fox 10 News.
And here on the Gulf Coast, one thing we see is a lot of rain, but there are also times when we go way too dry and end up in a drought. Meteorologist Michael White has more on those details.
Good evening. I'm meteorologist Michael White for Next Weather, and we are going to be talking about droughts. We've talked about flooding before on Next Weather, but the other big feature that we can end up dealing with on the Gulf Coast is the opposite of flooding, and that's droughts. And droughts can get us at any time in any given season. And the first question, of course, is what is a drought? Well, a drought can be a little difficult to define, but it is generally described as a precipitation deficit over a period of time that impacts the community through extensive damage to crops, limited crop yields, and restricted water use. And there's 4 big types of droughts that we have to watch out for. What are those types? Well, you've got agricultural drought, and what that is when there's not enough moisture in the soil to sustain the growth of the crops. Then you have a socioeconomic drought. That occurs when the water supply is too low to support human and environmental needs. Then you got a hydrological drought. That occurs when there's a lack of surface and subsurface water supply. The one that we're going to focus on, and the one that really I personally know the most about, is meteorological drought. Well, that is region specific. That occurs when an area receives less rainfall than it normally should. And for those of you who've lived on the Gulf Coast a long time, you know that this part of the country typically sees a lot of rain in a given year. So what are the classifications of meteorological drought? There's 5 of them if you count 0 as a level, so to speak. So it's 0 to 4. The level 0 zone is known as abnormally dry. And on a drought monitor map, that would show up as yellow. We see that pretty often on the Gulf Coast at times during the year. So if it's abnormally dry, that means there's short-term dryness, slowing planting, growth of crops or pastures. And when you come out of the drought, there's some lingering water deficits. Pastures or crops may not be fully recovered. Then you have the moderate drought. That means that there's some damage to crops and pastures. Streams, reservoirs, wells are low. There's water shortages developing or could be imminent, and voluntary water use restrictions are requested. Now, last year we got as high as severe drought. That shows up as orange. We did get there last year. We have not been there yet this year. But under severe drought, crops or pasture losses are likely. Water shortages are common. Water restrictions are imposed. Now, when you get into D3 and D4, we saw that over the past several years out in California. They had this really bad, and that led to all the wildfire problems. Extreme drought, major crop and pasture losses, widespread water shortages or restrictions. Exceptional is the worst one. Exceptional and widespread crop and pasture losses, shortages of water in reservoirs, streams, and wells, creating water emergencies. Thankfully, this past winter was so wet on the West Coast. Our friends out in California got out of those extreme and exceptional drought conditions. And this is the Alabama Drought Monitor map as of June the 8th. You can see that no counties in Alabama are underneath any sort of drought, which is fantastic. And if we look forward in time at what the Climate Prediction Center, the CPC, is going with for the next 6 to 10 day outlook that runs from June the 19th to June the 23rd, we're expecting to see above average precipitation for parts of the southeast, including the Gulf Coast. Now, you know that means it's not going to rain all day. There will be breaks in the rain, but overall rain totals will be above average. So that means we really don't have to be concerned about a drought, at least not anytime soon. The problem is sometimes droughts can sneak in when you least expect it. Now, typically our summers, especially July and August when the humidity is at its highest, are pretty wet because that moisture creates pop-up thunderstorms every day. We head into the fall, specifically October, the weather typically gets drier. Drier air moves in and we start to see less chances for rain. Well, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your night, and I will see you next time on Next Weather. For now, I'm meteorologist Michael White.
Well, thanks, Michael. Coming up, we'll have your extended forecast through next week.
New to the Fox 10 weather app, your 24-hour radar forecast. Be the first to see how precipitation is going to affect your plants across the Gulf Coast. Detailed hour by hour, the 24-hour radar forecast on the Fox 10 weather app. Plus the latest breaking news with the Fox 10 News app.
Got him, bro.
Stay alert with Fox 10. Prime time is Fox 10 time.
The latest on the night's top stories are first on Fox 10 News at 9.
Wrap up your day, informed and ready for the morning.
Looks like a summer pattern here as we look at the next 7 days and tracking it here, looking at the temperatures into the low 90s. And we're heading into Father's Day weekend. Monday is a holiday, Juneteenth, and we are looking at scattered showers and storms. Could be a little drier next week, which would be good, but the heat will come with that. Highs in the low 90s, overnight lows in the mid 70s. Looks like the summertime mugginess is with us in your 7-day forecast. Thanks for joining us here on Next Weather.